14 nominations, 38 concert tours worldwide, 11 studio albums that span 4 decades, the Titans of Thrash remain the standard by which all other metal is measured. We begin with a 1984 classic from their second album, For Whom the Bell Tolls, followed by the 1992 tour anthem, Wherever I May Roam. And then, let's turn down the house and light up the stage with the Auburn University Marching Band and their show, Metallica.
Auburn versus South Carolina is complete. It's post-game reaction time. The Auburn Tigers are victorious. We're going to talk about how we got there, the score, the stats, and the storylines. All that's coming up right now. War Eagle, and welcome to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together, we sit down, and we discuss and share in the Auburn experience, all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it, though, is if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. So thank you so much for joining us in what we're going to be doing this evening. Post-game reaction time, Auburn versus South Carolina, another tough match in the SEC. Your Auburn Tigers are victorious by the score of 71-67. As usual, our goals for this stream are to walk you through the stats and the stories, individual-wise, team-wise, and talk about all the nuances amongst those different facts that we can get into. Mostly substance here, a lot less sound bites. We're going to get into it and talk some Auburn basketball with you all this evening. First of all, let me address, before we welcome everybody, we are in a different location this evening with my need to travel this weekend. So certainly we hope that the sound quality and the visual quality for those of you watching is okay, and you can deal with it for the night. And the connection issue, if it's not, we apologize in advance. Doing the best we can on the travel situation right now. But thank you for your patience in that. With that being said, I want to welcome everybody in. We would appreciate you all hitting that like button, hitting that share button if you're watching on the other social medias out there, letting us know that you're here, that you're live, and we would appreciate you guys obviously participating in that way. We want to hear from you throughout the streams. We'll be trying to bring up some of your commentary as it is appropriate this evening, maybe a little bit towards the end as well, too. Certainly let us know that you're checking in. We got people already offering players of the game, so certainly it's much easier to ask this question and to participate in this way for this particular thing. Who is your player of the game? It probably is going to be one particular person this evening who really stepped up for Auburn. His name is Philip Jovic, and I think that's probably the person that most people are going to sit on this evening. So let's start off, and I think this is always a good way to start off the show. Let's talk about the emotions and the context. The emotions of, if you're someone who is, just reacting to scores and names and things like that, you're probably a little bit concerned with this performance tonight. And not to say there aren't some concerning things in one singular game. Certainly that can be the case. But we are going to talk about some of the substance behind it and some of the facts to help me make a little bit more sense. The SEC is tough, folks. I'm not saying that South Carolina is the most formidable of the SEC. That is clearly not the case. They share the same record with Auburn right now, or did before the loss. So obviously it's not one that you want to drop, especially at home. It would definitely be concerning if you drop this one at home when you're supposed to win against an opponent where they're currently at in the SEC. So Auburn takes care of business, not the cleanest in the world. One of the biggest things that people have been harping on about Auburn is their, I want to say lack of defense, but not to the standard that has been Auburn fans have come accustomed to with Bruce Pearl and Stephen Pearl as an assistant coach, now the head coach. And that's obviously something I think tonight that showed out a little bit at times, a little bit less scoring of a game, 71-67, an Auburn Tiger win. That's just not what we're quite used to with Auburn. I think the per possession scoring, they were like 9th in the country right now. So a little bit unconventional game. And when we walk through some of these stats tonight, you're going to certainly see some of that. Let's just start right here. We'll go with individual stats, and certainly let me know if you have a player of the game situation, a shout out that you want to drop for someone. But let's start with the guy who's probably going to get most of your attention this evening. Off the bench, Philip Jovic tonight has a career game for the Auburn Tigers. 23 points, 9 for 12 from the field. Doesn't make any three-pointers. He makes 5 of 8 free throws, 6 rebounds. He only has 1 personal foul and no turnovers in 30 minutes of play off the bench. So an outstanding game for Philip Jovic. And so many of you are already saying this. so many times, giving him a shout out. And certainly it was nice to see that. Can I remind you all of how much maybe concern, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of concern, but some awful things people were saying about Filip Jovic when he first arrived. It's almost like you just need to give a little bit of patience and let these guys kind of get it figured out and see what can happen. You can pop off for a 23-point game at home. I mean, he was just everywhere that he needed to be tonight. He's getting alley-oops. He's cleaning up under the basket, contributed heavily to the points in the paint situation for Auburn, which is probably going to be a key statistic tonight. Filip Jovic is very underrated for how important he is part of this team. And I think he showed that tonight, certainly from the scoring aspect of it. So I think it's probably, something that people need to remember going forward about all of this on the performance of individual players on this team. But certainly if you're going to give out a player of the game, and usually those go to the highest scorers tonight, he is by far that. 23 points off the bench. I think there's no qualms with anybody giving that to him tonight. Other players who scored in double digits, you had two other ones, and both were tied at 11. One off the bench, one is a starter. Oh, I'm sorry, both were starters. Just the way I was looking at it was a little bit different there. Keyshawn Murphy with 11 and Sebastian Williams-Adams with 11. So get this, Auburn won tonight where all of its guards or its small forward, its swingman were having scoring-wise off nights. So much to the point that Elijah Freeman, 0 points. We'll get there in a second, but just to point that out right there. But everybody guard position-wise was to some degree not doing what we're expecting out of them, at least scoring-wise. Your big men take care of business. Filip Jovic with the leading scoring, Keyshawn Murphy, and then obviously, blanking off the top of my head right now, I guess I could go back to the stat sheet, Sebastian Williams-Adams. So 11 points apiece. Let's start with Keyshawn Murphy. 11 points, 4 for 7 from the field. All his free throws. What a day, man. What a day. Big men are making all their free throws. 2 rebounds, 1 assist, only 1 personal foul in 21 minutes of play for him. Sebastian Williams-Adams, he gets 11 points, 3 for 9 from the field. He misses both his 3-pointers, 5 for 7 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, so very close to a double-double. 1 assist, 2 personal fouls, 3 turnovers for him. So, a pretty decent day. Not necessarily what we have seen out of him in other games, but certainly tonight, where he is tied for second leading scorer tonight, and that's far stretch from the first leading scorer. Pretty solid night for him compared to others as well. So that's it in double figures as far as your guys, all big men. Let's keep walking through this for the rest of the scoring. 2 players tied, both starters, for 9 points. That would be Kevin Overton and Tahad Pettiford. So once again, let's just start with Tahad. The narrative, at least at home, continues to hold true that offensively there have been struggles for him at home. He provides a lot of energy and a lot of defense and a lot of other things that don't get enough credit or go unnoticed at times. I think you saw that a lot in the first half for him. I think I saw Steven come over to him and just start pounding in a congratulatory way on his shoulder and chest and saying, "That's what I'm talking about, man." So even when the player that you're expecting to do the scoring is not doing that thus far this year, that at least at home, he's still contributing in a lot of different ways. Let's see what we got here. Tahad Pettiford, 9 points, 2 for 8 from the field, 4 for 6 from the free throw line. And when he started off with missing some free throws, I was like, oh boy, I hope it's not going to be a rough night. And it's comparatively, it's not a rough night because he's been very hot and cold most of the year, depending on where we're playing. 2 rebounds, 5 assists tonight. So he's the leading scorer. He's sharing the ball well as the starting point guard. 2 personal fouls and 1 turnover. Kevin Overton tonight. Can we just give congrats and props to my man Kevin Overton again for being the steady, leading the course for Auburn of making those free throws at the end to secure the win. 9 points, both his free throws, 1 3-pointer, 3 for 8 from the field, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, 3 personal fouls, 37 minutes of play. Kevin Overton just doing solid work, especially when you compared to others tonight. Here's a little bit of a shout out from WT for Pettiford. Certainly we talked about this a little bit, but had some really great passes, an oop or two to Filip Jovic. Obviously He was doing a lot more than just scoring this evening. Almost got into double figures, both of them. But that's your next leading scores. Keyshawn Hall, 8 points tonight. That feels weird, doesn't it, right? This is where context comes into play, because you would say off night, and you are pretty correct in that. However, where's the context? He got into foul trouble early. Was it 3 fouls in the first, I don't know, what was it, 10 minutes, something like that? So he had to sit a lot. In fact, so much so, he only played 14 minutes tonight. He gets 8 points. 4 of those are free throws. He makes all of them. 4 rebounds, 4 turnovers tonight. So you would look across the board of his stat line and you go, not so great. Not so great. But obviously that's 2 games in a row for him where he's been a little bit off, where he just followed 2 games where he scored 30 points in a row. I don't know. It's just basketball, man. It is just basketball. WT says Hall's free throws down the stretch grant him a pass for his scoring tonight. Isn't that funny how we, and I agree with you, isn't that funny how we give people the benefit of the doubts when they're doing the little things? Turnovers, rebounds, free throws. We'll get there in a second. Individual-wise. That's all the scoring this evening. Nobody scored less than 8, but the main scoring came from Mr. Jovic tonight. Elijah Freeman with 0 points tonight. That is just odd. Simon Walker, Blake Muselik, who's getting the secondary point guard role currently. Neither of them score tonight, but Blake has been talked about by coach that he's mainly there for defensive purposes right now, while they're needing to kind of amplify that up a little bit. What else? Making sure we didn't miss anything in the individual parts. I don't think we did. I think we covered the player of the game. Most everybody else. If there's something that we have missed in your mind that we need to talk about in regards to an individual great play. I mean, my favorite play that I can remember from this, there's a couple of them, but one that just sticks out to my mind right now was that assist alley-oop situation from Tahad Pettiford and Philip Jovic, busyness in the lane. That one is the one that sticks out to me, and I think it kind of personifies the big story of the night, Philip Jovic, with his outstanding offensive night. So glad that he is getting a little bit of his flowers after a lot of the people who obviously don't know what they're talking about questions his validity as part of this team early in the year when he kind of hasn't been there as much as everybody else, or at least as long. So that's team stats. Give us some shout outs or some other questions or comments about the individuals if we need to. We'll come back to that. Team stats. You know what we're going to be doing every single show, focusing on the big 3 first. The big 3 stats are, say it with me, free throws, turnovers, rebounds. If you win these 3, you're going to be in good position for the game most of the time. It doesn't mean that you 100% win, but if you can win that category and at least create a little bit of a margin of victory in those categories, you're going to have a successful time for the most part. Let's look and see if that matches up with the Auburn win and matches up with the margin of victory, 71-67. Free throws tonight, 67% for South Carolina to Auburn's 77% from the free throw line. So they creep much closer to that 80% mark down the stretch, courtesy of Kevin Overton, courtesy of Keyshawn Hall. It was sitting in the low 70s towards the end of the game there. So it wasn't outstanding. It was fine. 80% is where I want to see them at. But Auburn does win that category by a decent enough margin. If you're on the road and you're South Carolina and you're sitting in a situation that they are in where you've found yourself in striking distance because of some 3-point shooting, which the people I was with this evening, I said, if this keeps up, Auburn's going to be in trouble. You got to make your free throws. You make your free throws, who knows what happens at this point. We might be talking about yet another upset over Auburn. So thankfully, Auburn wins that category with a significant enough margin. Turnovers tonight, still pretty high for the Auburn Tigers with 11, but they do win the category 15-11. So they get the notch in their belt for that win column there. Still not good enough, in my opinion, an area that they continue to be addressed. In fact, I get asked that a lot. What's the area that you would say Auburn needs to work on the most? And that'd be the turnover situation. So with 11 turnovers tonight. And rebounds, finally. Let's see if this switched back. It did not into Auburn's favor. 39-35. They win that category, which is one of the reasons why they were able to maintain a position of some feasibility of maybe pulling off the upset here. This is from WT, going back to individual stuff real quick. Didn't they say that Hall leads all college players for free throws made? I don't recall that off the top of my head, but that does not sound like a foreign possibility or a thing that hasn't been true, at least at some point. Maybe that changes tonight with all the college basketball games, but we do know that free throws, at least on the individual level, have been very secure with Keyshawn Hall. In fact, when he misses one, it's shocking. Let's just be honest about that. So as a team, though, free throws, they win. Rebounds, they do not. They win turnovers. My main criticism tonight is the turnovers, even in the winning that category, needs to be a little bit lower in the big three tonight. I think it matches up pretty nicely there with that 4-point margin of victory. Let's walk through the rest. Anything that else sticks out to everybody here? Auburn was shooting a lot better from the field, not from other areas, throughout most of the game. But right there at the end, not only did South Carolina improve their first half shooting and three-point shooting, but just in general, they got up to 40%. Auburn barely wins that category. So South Carolina's second half performance, even though they were within a striking distance in the second half, 24-30 was the halftime score, they really put themselves in a position to make this a little bit scary down the stretch with the way they shot in the second half. In fact, their three-point percentage was 32%. Everybody brace yourself for this one, and this might be the most important stat of the game. We won't assume, because you know what happens when you assume. 11% three-point percentage for Auburn basketball in this game. You can survive that at home. You cannot survive that on the road unless you are doing everything else outstanding. And I think there are some very clear things you can do to counteract that, winning the big three. 11% is bad, and that was taking into account how bad South Carolina was. Apparently, Michi, however you say his name, just loves to shoot the ball whenever he can. Let's see if we can find him somewhere on there he is. 7. Johnson is the one. He took 7 3-pointers. He made 3 of them. 2 of 2 for Walker. Man, you've got 5 guys with 3 threes attempted or higher for South Carolina. It's part of the reason that they found themselves in striking distance here. Keep going down the stats a little bit. Second chance points is in the favor of South Carolina. They doubled up Auburn there. Another reason that they were in striking distance. Bench points tonight, all by way of Filip Jovic with his 23 points. 23-9, Auburn wins that. So one might be able to make the case that the big stat and the big story period is just Filip Jovic, because you could make a case if he doesn't do this tonight with Keyshawn Hall being in foul trouble, Auburn's in a world of hurt. You would hope that others would step up if he's not doing that. But that's a pretty strong case right there just to say the full statement about this game is Filip Jovic. I would not be opposed to that. Points in the paint, 26-42. Auburn wins that one. Pretty significant margin right there. Auburn taking care of business at home, another area that they really paid dividends out on for themselves. Fast break points, very low for both teams, especially Auburn at home. 3-6, Auburn wins that. Blocks in favor of Auburn, they double up. South Carolina steals, they double up South Carolina as well. Assists, pretty even, 11-10 in South Carolina's favor. That's the stats right there, folks. What I see when I look up and down this is some very clear things that gave, as I've said a lot, South Carolina the opportunity to stay in striking distance and almost pull an upset here. But Auburn and some of its leadership, Kevin Overton, taking care of business down the stretch, making sure that craziness couldn't continue to happen with logo 3-pointers continuing to just drive a dagger into the hearts of the Auburn fan base tonight. You certainly got your money's worth, and you certainly got your heart rate up. So in a little bit of a summary, again, final score 71-67. Auburn wins. I would say your player of the game, clearly Filip Jovic. You could say the stat of the game is Filip Jovic, but I'm going to pick, in terms of the most important stat of the game, is the 11% three-point shooting percentage for Auburn. It's that low at home. again, you can survive this, but if they even shoot into the 20s, we're talking probably about a situation where Auburn is winning by 10 plus or something like that, the way they made up in some of the other areas right there. So there's your score, your big stat, and your storylines, Philip Jovic, as well, for Auburn beating South Carolina. I can take any other commentary that you all might have for this game. I think there was maybe a couple of things. There's some things going on this evening too that are, counteracting with Auburn people paying attention to this game, things like that. But certainly if there's anything else that we need to talk about, drop it in the chat before we get out of here. A couple of reminders for you, though, for our schedule for the upcoming week. Got a lot going on this week because there won't be a lot of overlap, but our next scheduled live stream is going to be episode 158 of the Auburn Experience podcast. This week, we will be obviously doing Auburn Potpourri, 2 major topics. One will be the basketball week. Lots of exciting thing in the basketball week to talk about, men's and women's. You don't want to miss that. But also, we'll probably this week take a little bit of not a pause. We'll talk transfer portal, but we'll be talking about a lot of the schedule stuff that's been announced this week for football and other things, and kind of a schedule update segment this weekend. Plenty of other Auburn sports, culture, family stories to talk about in the Auburn Experience. Another post-game show. If you like these, Auburn heading out to Ole Miss. I think it's called the Pavilion now. It's a really great arena. So check that out. We'll be live right after the game. It'll be a later one, just like we are here right now. And then Auburn Family Night is back this week. We'll be talking about anything and everything that you want to discuss. Live calls, live chat. You guys are the story and the show for that particular one. So with that in mind, I think that is the majority of our reminders and the things that we needed to talk about in here. Just taking a quick breeze through our live chat. I think the point has been made by everybody tonight. Philip Jovic is the guy. I saw a lot of people talking about some of the other things that are happening that have Auburn people interested this evening too, that maybe kept them a little bit away from this thing right now. I think we've covered it all. Thank you guys so much for bearing with me in a different location and a different setup here for those of you that are watching. I hope the audio quality and the connection was good enough for you all. And thank you for your patience in that. We always appreciate you being here for any live stream we do, but especially for Auburn basketball and when we're in unique locations. As we go this evening, I want to remind you, the Auburn Creed asks you to do these things: to do justly, to love mercy, and walk humbly with God. We ask you to do